Welcome to the 34th video in the series, The Foundations of Communist Organizing. Today we'll be going over the 1926 piece by the Third Communist International's Sixth Enlarged Executive, Report by the Left of Communist Party of Italy, which I subtitled, Internationalist Leadership Using Principled Tactics Ensures Proletarian Hegemony Within Party. In this text, in terms of the construction, organizational structure, principles and tactics of the working class association, which is capable of seizing political power and establishing a dictatorship of the proletariat, the left of the Communist Party of Italy explains the need to maintain adherence to principles, even in objective conditions being contrary to the ability of the party to develop subjective conditions, and offers tactics to maintain coherence and how to deal with factions and internal party issues. The role of the party in the revolution is to act as general staff of the proletariat, and that involves a deep study of tactics, whereby we must know what the enemy through studying their offensive, and ourselves through determination of the concentration of the proletariat, along with its exact knowledge of phenomena in terms of its participation and factor in material events and its will and action. From this, we can determine what tactics to follow, and these require a program to carry them out. And because the offensive and concentration are different in each circumstance, different tactics are required to suit the conditions. In developed bourgeois states, for instance, they have high ideological mobilization, capacity for armed struggle, and stemming from those, a well-oiled defeatist education of the working class. While the organizational form is paramount in being able to carry out tactics, it is not the sole determining factor for the success of the revolution. In a phrase, quote, the problem is of force, not form, end quote. The form of a blade can more easily slay, but without force behind the edge, it will not pierce defenses, and the harder the defenses, the better formed the weapon for the job must be, and the greater the force. Ultimately, what is needed is dynamism, allowing rapid form shifting and application to different conditions capable of carrying out necessary work. At all times, the work must include the ability for the working class to discuss general political problems that concern the whole working class, including principally the problems of revolutionary development, the state, and the seizure of power. Bordiga's position on organizational forms is that the structure is a political problem of activity and tactics. It does not alone solve all problems, and it is through action and tactics that revolutionary direction is decided. Hence, organizational structure is part of tactics and decides activities, and is therefore one tool of many that decides if a party is revolutionary, and we can say things about it prior to carrying it out through analysis of conditions and basis for carrying out work. In other words, we can, and to at least some degree within conditions, prefigure the organizational format of the Communist Party. It is actually also a question of form. I don't agree with this, form doesn't matter here, it could be anything. No. What it is really matters. Yeah, it's dynamic, yeah, it's fluid, yeah, it can shift. But we can prefigure it because we know what kind of structures we need, based on previous experience, based on analysis of the situation at hand. Continuing, all organizations must be able to 1. Protect from police. 2. Organize in places without surveillance regularly. 3. Focus on antagonism between capital and labor, with the conditions of the meeting ideally creating it. 4. Reject calls for concessions from the state, and so on. And 5. Lead to autonomous action by the Proletarian Party. In order to protect the party from losing its principles and thereby aims, in periods wherein objective conditions are not in place, the party must focus on not falling into Workerism or Laborism, and understand that the party is not harmed by the active participation of other social classes, so long as they take part in their work, accept party doctrine, and are willing to fight for proletarian class interests. It should resist internal shifts caused by external conditions, which cause its ideological discipline to suffer, resisting opportunism even if conditions incentivize it, and in the event of internal crisis, refuse to change principles, but instead investigate the political line and activity for a solution. Good activity, working methods, and inspirational quality will produce leaders. Anti-Opportunism will produce good leaders and a formation of a general staff. It should not water down its message, which leaves it vulnerable to being co-opted by petty bourgeois and social democratic opposition, but instead it should maintain independence while keeping relations with other worker organizations, and defend against any liquidationist tendencies which weaken its position. The party must not only have a tie with the masses, but also have a center for those masses to rally around, which can lead them to the final revolutionary objective, acting as general staff. In terms of how to handle factions, with internal unity, suppression of differences of opinion, and the end of factions, it means that the party is on the best path. However, how these are suppressed determines if they truly are or not. 1. It should aim to be homogeneous, without differences of opinion or different groupings. This requires that all ideological, tactical, and organizational questions be correctly posed and resolved. 2. It should gather and unite whatever actions and initiatives there are in the class struggle as a whole currently, whatever those may be. 3. When the party fails to stop factions and groups from arising, it is not the fault of individuals, but of the party, and solutions to such deviations cannot be penal, but systematic. Attacks on individuals do not resolve anything. 4. Continuous criticism and self-criticism harms party unity and cohesion, and while statutes need sanctions for breaching, it should only be in exceptional cases, and normal, general procedures of the party must be without censure. Everyone must be able to form an opinion and express it frankly, and any and all questions directed at party members should have their political contents made clear. No quote-unquote gotcha questions to test loyalty and the like. 5. Within the party, agitation, which is the mass informing of simple ideas with rote agitation, being able to set the masses in motion with initiative and consciousness being secondary for engaging in this, is harmful, as is propaganda, which focuses on particular sections of the population to educate complex ideas, as the class party must be aimed at having complete and general knowledge. 6. Factions need to be analyzed for their reasons of development and aim, with the understanding that not all factions are bourgeois. They are symptoms of ideological and political errors. We should aim principally to deal with the causal factors. 7. The party ideally does not have factions, and it must introduce the working class to a new form of politics which is completely distinct from bourgeois politics, which rely on political machinations and cleverness, but rather, it's fully direct. And finally, 8. Ultimately, the International should determine the formation of factions. The international organization is a pyramid, with an apex and sides mounted towards it. This is unity and centralization, and it must be steady on its base, stable from top to bottom. Lastly, it discusses the stance of the party in regards to unions. The party must penetrate into the unions, bring large masses under the influence of the party, conquer leadership in them, take the central trade union apparatus at the final struggle, and, along with the masses, conquer the entire trade union apparatus and force all reformists out of the union movement and into the hands of the bourgeois state. To this end, secret committees and factories in charge of worker organization should be made which connect to all unions, and they should work with the unorganized masses, creating provisional agitation committees that include the whole factory workforce. Ultimately, at the end of things, a new organization which is distinct from trade unions should be established that acts as a network of factory organs without the same limitations of unions. And that is my summary of the Third Communist International's Sixth Enlarged Executive report by the left of the Communist Party of Italy. As usual, if you'd like to go into the description below, you will find a link to this Google document where you can see where I derived this summary from in terms of quotations. And in addition, there will be a link to the United Marxist Pact Discord server, where you can discuss this in greater detail or any other piece of communist literature that you want to put to the fore. Tomorrow, we will be working through skipping ahead to right after World War II, the 1945 piece by Prometeo, Nature, Function, and Tactics of the Revolutionary Party of the Working Class. Thank you for joining me for today's topical summary, and I hope to see you then.